People who support evolution theory do not accept creationism. They believe that evolution theory has perfect scientific evidence, while creationism has no scientific evidence. Because they have different philosophical approaches, there is a large gap between those who believe in evolution theory and those who believe in creationism. Scientists who believe in evolution theory cite the following scientific evidence to support their claims. Firstly, evolution theory and creationism have different evidence. Evolution theory is based on scientific evidence and research, and there is plenty of evidence to support it. In contrast, creationism is based on religious beliefs and has insufficient scientific evidence. Secondly, evolution theory has been verified in various fields. Evolution theory has been tested through experiments and studies in various fields such as biology, geology, astronomy, and physics. On the other hand, creationism has not undergone scientific verification, and many scientists believe that the theory itself is untestable. Thirdly, evolution theory has high predictability. It can be predicted through new discoveries and studies, and the probability of accurate predictions is high. In contrast, creationism has low predictability and is difficult to verify scientifically. Lastly, creationism cannot be scientifically verified. As creationism is based on religious beliefs, it cannot be scientifically verified. The theory itself is untestable, making it difficult to accept scientifically. Therefore, most scientists who believe in evolution theory do not accept creationism because the theory itself is scientifically verifiable. It has been verified in various fields, and it has high predictability. Evolutionists claim that they cannot believe in creationism because it lacks scientific evidence. This means that evolution theory has a lot of scientific evidence and is without errors. Evolution is always assumed to be linear and goal-oriented. Natural selection can result in particular adaptations that make organisms more suited to their environment, but it does not necessarily have a specific final goal or purpose in mind. Instead, evolution is driven by random mutations and genetic variation that occur within populations, and organisms are selected based on how well they can survive and reproduce in their environment. These are important nuances to keep in mind, but it is worth noting that they do not fundamentally challenge the concept of natural selection or the broad theory of evolution proposed by Darwin. Evolutionary theory can be tested through experimental methods. Through numerous experiments, evolutionary theory has discovered phenomena such as genetic variation, natural selection, and genetic drift. Natural selection is believed to always favor the most fit or successful individuals or species. However, the concept of fitness can vary depending on the organism's environment and the characteristics that are most advantageous for survival and reproduction in that situation. Additionally, some traits may be neutral or even slightly disadvantageous in one situation, but highly advantageous in another, emphasizing the importance of considering the larger ecological and evolutionary context in which a species exists. From this perspective, proponents of evolutionary theory believe that natural selection is responsible for the survival of the fittest in the world. Furthermore, evolutionary biologists claim that there is a great deal of evidence supporting this theory. Geological evidence also supports this theory. Geologists study the Earth's geological layers, oxidized rocks, and fossils to understand how the Earth's environment has changed over millions of years. By analyzing fossils found in geological strata, researchers can infer the forms and ecosystems of ancient organisms and study the evolutionary processes of these organisms. There is also genetic evidence to support evolution. Through genetic analysis, it is possible to understand the evolutionary process of organisms. DNA or RNA analysis is an important tool for understanding the evolution, form, function, and lore of organisms. Finally, evolution is believed to always occur through gradual and incremental changes. Gradualism is one possible mode of evolution, but there are also cases where evolution can occur through more rapid or intermittent changes, such as during periods of environmental upheaval or when a population experiences sudden genetic bottlenecks. These non-gradual modes of evolution can be important for understanding the patterns and processes of evolutionary change. Evolutionary theory is one of the best supported and widely accepted scientific theories, and it is important to note its acceptance within the scientific community. While there may be ongoing debates or discussions about specific aspects of the theory, there is no evidence of fundamental flaws or need for major revisions. However, scientists do acknowledge potential errors in evolutionary theory. For example, the 5 errors identified by Gould include the belief that evolution is purely random or unguided. While mutations in genetic variation may occur randomly within a population, natural selection serves as a non-random filter that can influence which traits become more or less common over time. In this sense, evolution can be seen as a non-random, directionality process driven by selective pressures within an organism's environment. Another error is the belief that evolution always leads to greater complexity or higher forms of life. While some lineages may evolve to become more complex or develop new adaptations that allow them to exploit new ecological niches, there is no inherent drive or goal towards greater complexity in evolution. In fact, some organisms may evolve to be simpler or more efficient in response to selective pressures imposed by their environment and way of life. Third, it is believed that evolution always proceeds at a constant or steady pace. In reality, the speed of evolution can vary greatly depending on various factors such as the strength of selection pressure, the amount of genetic variation available in the population, and the rate of mutation. Some lineages may undergo a rapid burst of evolution followed by a long period of relative stasis, while others may evolve more gradually over time. Fourth, natural selection is believed to always favor the most fit or successful individuals or species. In reality, the concept of fitness can vary depending on the organism's environment and the traits that are most advantageous for survival and reproduction in that situation. Additionally, some traits may be neutral or even slightly disadvantageous in one situation but highly advantageous in another, emphasizing the importance of considering the larger ecological and evolutionary context in which a species exists. Fifth, it is believed that evolution always occurs through gradual and incremental changes. Gradualism is one possible mode of evolution, but there are also cases where evolution can occur more rapidly or intermittently, such as during periods of environmental upheaval or when a population undergoes a sudden genetic bottleneck. Such non-gradual modes of evolution can be important for understanding the patterns and processes of evolutionary change. However, scientists acknowledge many errors and limitations in these beliefs. They have identified 10 errors and limitations which have been based on a vast amount of empirical evidence from various scientific fields, and have undergone numerous revisions and updates over the years. There may be ongoing debates and discussions regarding certain aspects of these theories, but there is no evidence that fundamentally flawed or major revisions are necessary. This is because the philosophical debates that originated with Darwin's theory of evolution serve as a starting point and not all evidence can be discussed. First, it is the belief that evolution violates the second law of thermodynamics. Some creationists or anti-evolutionists argue that evolution violates the second law of thermodynamics. However, this claim is based on misunderstandings of both evolution and thermodynamics, as biological systems are not closed systems and can experience local reductions in entropy by consuming energy from the environment. Second, it is the notion that evolution is purely random or unguided. As mentioned earlier, while mutations and genetic variations occur randomly within a population, natural selection acts as a non-random filter that can influence which traits become more or less common over time. Other factors such as genetic drift, gene flow, and epigenetics can also play important roles in shaping evolutionary trajectories. Third, it is the claim that there are no transitional fossils. One common misconception is that there are no transitional fossils that document gradual evolutionary transitions from one species to another. However, there are many examples of transitional fossils that demonstrate gradual evolutionary transitions between different groups, including the evolution of whales from land mammals and the evolution of birds from dinosaurs. However, since not all fossils are preserved and the number of fossils discovered is limited, the fossil record cannot be considered completely consistent. Scientists explain that an experiment that is not deterministic cannot be considered evidence. The pattern is different and not deterministic, and the lack of fossils of almost all animals makes it impossible to explain the evolutionary process. It cannot completely explain the evolutionary process of all organisms. Also, the estimation of chronological age can be incorrect. Fourth, it is the notion that evolution always leads to greater complexity or higher forms of organisms. As mentioned earlier, evolution has no inherent drive or goal towards complexity, and some lineages can evolve to be simpler or more efficient in response to selection pressures. Fifth, it is the claim that the eye is too complex to have evolved. Some anti-evolutionists argue that the complexity of the eye is evidence that it was designed by a creator. However, both the fossil record and comparative genomics provide ample evidence that eyes have independently evolved multiple times in different lineages and that there are many transitional forms of eyes with varying levels of complexity. 6. It is the notion that evolution is solely a survival of the fittest or red and tooth and claw process. While competition can clearly be a factor in evolution, cooperation and mutualism can also be highly advantageous. Additionally, sexual selection, genetic drift, and other factors can also play important roles in shaping evolutionary trajectories. The 7th point is that evolution always progresses at a constant or consistent rate. As mentioned earlier, the rate of evolution can vary greatly depending on various factors, and some lineages can experience sudden explosions of evolution or long periods of relative stasis. The 8th point is that natural selection always favors the most fit or successful individuals or species. As mentioned earlier, the concept of fitness can vary depending on the situation, and it can depend on the characteristics that are most advantageous for the organism's environment, survival, and reproduction. The 9th point is an error. The belief that evolution is incompatible with religion creates all the evidence. Some religious beliefs may be incompatible with certain interpretations of evolution, but many people believe that there is no inherent conflict between evolution and religious beliefs. The 10th error is the error of genetic sequencing. Scientists say that errors in genetic sequencing can arise from the methods of analysis and interpretation of data. One common problem in genetic sequencing analysis is the lack of verification due to insufficient sample sizes. In other words, if there are not enough samples, it may be difficult to understand the actual evolutionary relationships. Another problem is the potential oversight of various types of sequence diversity in sequence genomics analysis. Diversity of sequence types is important in explaining evolutionary processes. Therefore, if such diversity is not reflected in the analysis, errors may occur. The 11th error is that errors can also occur in the interpretation of data. When interpreting the analyzed sequence data, various factors should be considered, and generally, evolutionary interpretations should take precedence. However, problems may arise, such as interpreting data according to theories other than evolutionary theory or exaggerating the interpretation of the results. The 12th error is that some scientists who believe in evolution believe that they can determine the evolutionary relationships and history of organisms by analyzing the geographical distribution of organisms on Earth and finding that similar organisms found in different regions are evolutionarily close to each other. The geographical distribution formed as organisms evolve in different regions provides very important information about relationships between species and evolutionary history. However, various errors can occur during the analysis of this geographical distribution data. Scientists point out 5 errors in the thinking of evolutionary biologists. First, errors can occur if there is insufficient sampling when collecting geographical distribution data. Without sufficient sampling, the actual geographical distribution of organisms cannot be reflected, and regional biases may occur. Secondly, depending on the classification method of the biological group, the interpretation of geographic distribution can vary. Even if organisms are classified as the same species, their evolutionary history may be different if they are found in different geographic areas, leading to different interpretations of their geographic distribution. Thirdly, errors can occur in the analysis of geographic distribution if various variables are not considered. For example, the size of the biological group, geographic barriers, and environmental conditions can all influence geographic distribution. Failure to consider these variables can lead to errors. Fourthly, errors in geographic distribution can occur if the connectivity of the biological group is not considered. If the biological group is not connected, it can be difficult to accurately determine their evolutionary history or relationships between different species. The 14th error in biogeography is related to an excessive focus on animal embryology. Through the study of animal embryology, scientists can identify evolutionary relationships between different species based on shared physiological characteristics. However, there are 2 main errors in animal embryology. The first is developmental homology error, which refers to cases where organisms that undergo the same developmental process end up with different forms. Even if they went through the same developmental process in different biological groups, they may have very different shapes or structures, leading to errors in determining their evolutionary similarity. The second error in animal embryology is molecular developmental error, which occurs when errors are made in tracking evolutionary relationships between biological groups using DNA sequence analysis. Although DNA sequence analysis has been used to identify the evolutionary relationships between different biological groups, errors can still occur. If organisms with the same DNA sequence have different evolutionary histories, molecular developmental errors can overestimate or underestimate their evolutionary similarity. Lastly, vertical inheritance error is another error in animal embryology, which refers to cases where gene transfer between parents and offspring is not completely accurate. This type of error can also lead to errors in determining evolutionary similarity. This is an error of the 14th theory of evolution. It is an excessive focus on genetic mutation research. Scientists believe that by analyzing genetic mutations in organisms, they can understand the rate of variation and the ultimate cause of variation between different species. However, scientists say that there are three more errors that occur here. First, there may be cases where the same genetic mutation appears in different species. In these cases, the estimation of evolutionary similarity can be overestimated or underestimated, leading to errors in genetic mutation research, as the same genetic mutation can occur in similar organisms. Second, the same genetic mutation can also occur in different individuals. In these cases, genetic mutations can occur in different individuals within the same species, so to minimize this error, it is necessary to analyze genetic mutations in as many individuals as possible. Third, some genetic mutations may not be evolutionarily significant. If such mutations have not played a significant role in the evolutionary process, judging evolutionary similarity through genetic mutation research can lead to errors. It is said that asking people to believe only in philosophical thinking that cannot be proven with so many major errors is just another belief. Therefore, many scientists point out that the thinking of some people who believe in certain evolutionary theories is incorrect, and this is just an idea that started as an attempt to overcome the recession in the publishing industry, not science.